with me, JB. Hope we're all doing extremely well this January, Thursday, the 15th. Good morning, just about. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. I do hope you are doing really, really well today. So a couple of things to get into today, and I think the headline says it all. Again, Jason Wilcox is the gift that keeps giving to this club. Again, every single day there are things that come out about him, and I think it's our obligation on here to report it. I want to come back on something as well that I said something. I gave you an update. Somebody's been on here a couple of times saying, "Oh, you don't have any sources, blah 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 blah." But I just want to come back on that a bit because something I said is completely true. So let's get through that today. Scott is in the house already. He says, "Yes, JB. Yes, Scotty. I hope you're doing extremely well." Second thing to say, Dave the Red is in the house as well. Absolute legend, my friend. Hope you're doing extremely well. So the first thing to say, as we always do, is get into this community. This community is the best on this platform, without a doubt. Look, be respectful. Get into the chat. We don't mind the banter. We don't mind people who are rival fans. As long as it's done with respect, we don't mind the banter. Yes, Scott is always in the house because he lives in the house. Scott helped build the house. There you go, Scott. So look, get into this community. Be respectful at all times. Be respectful to the community. Be respectful to the moderators. Be respectful to yourselves, because that's important as well. And be respectful to me. Otherwise, the ban hammer comes out. We don't like doing it. Some of us have got itchy ban hands, but we do not mind doing it. Second of all, look, I am not a dictator of this chat. I genuinely do read out your chat. This is why this show takes so long. It's because I read out your chats. It's really important for me, for you guys to get your say. So look, get in there with those chats. I will read them out because I respect those chats. And if I do come back on a chat, it's not because I'm trying to disrespect your opinion. It's basically because you've sparked off a chat, which is good. And look, we don't always have to agree. So sometimes it can be frustrating. Sometimes it can be. But look, whether your Glazers in, out, shake it all about, this is your show, and get in there. Scott said, I had the United top when I was like three. I had the United top when I was like 3. Yeah, I had this top when I was about 20. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, I love this top, and I think this is quite apt to wear this top as well. To be fair, this is probably one of those tops that I think, with what we're going to discuss today. And again, this topic of conversation today, and I will go through it all today. Scott says it was one of those first tops I ever got. David says this channel is the best. United is best. United is always red. Look, this will always be red, my friend. That this top for me today, this badge is important today. So look, get into the chat. Let me know what you've heard overnight. There is Rashford rumours as well. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff. Look, we cover stuff all of the time on here. Sully says the turnaround is in positivity after the Carrick announcement is concerning for me. It's like we never learn. I hope it goes well, but can't expect anything different. And Sully, look, mate, fantastic point. And I don't buy into this. We don't buy into this on this channel. Like, I want Carrick to do well, but that's the end of the positivity streak. Sully, mate, you couldn't be any more right if you tried. And look, that's just my opinion on it. That is what United do. That is what United have hope for. Is why do people think that United have done this in the way that they have? It's because they want those clicks. United make money from YouTube, from social media, right? The more clicks, the more money, right? So they've purposefully stretched this out because it makes you excited. You look at now what's doing the rounds. You've got the MUTV thing. You've got Rio Ferdinand on it as well. Given Carrick this, he's this cool guy. And look, this is not about the manager. This is not about him. Okay, but Sully's right. The positivity, it's almost like, and Sully, it is the same after every single game, right? It is a reset. It's like playing video game. You forget to press save and remember where you were. You reset the game and you play again. You know, this is what the Glazers are fantastic at doing, and this is what people they buy into. But look, Sully, Dino is in the house, the legend that is Dino, absolute legend of the channel. Same as Sully, same as Dave, the Red. Sully says, I'm sick of hearing they speak well, also like, who cares? And Sully, mate, that drives me mental. Oh, he speaks really well. Oh, Carrick talks, you know, what a fantastic, what a fantastic player he was. You know, he's such a deep thinker. I mean, Scott said, I seen the thumbnail before, JB, not saying from who, but you know, Wilcox, says Wilcox despite the transfers. Look, I'm going to get it. So the first thing I wanted to say is this. So last week, I told you guys that I speak to a person, and I believe this person is really, really good, right? They were telling me about Ollie. Now, previously to that, I'll give you the context if you've never been here before, because look, this is a win for the channel, by the way. Is somebody told me about the transfer window, and I've been saying this, so look, that one could be true. I got told that directly after the Leeds game, Amorim was literally going to be sacked, and watch the next few hours because he's going to be sacked, and Fletcher's going to become the interim manager. That happened. I was then told that Ollie is the favourite guy. You know, he's been favourite all week, favourite up until Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then Carrick was instilled. Now, all the information I updated you on, Carrick was interviewed, and one of the things I said that was really, really key, to this, I told you about a power struggle, right? There was a power struggle that Carrick, that Wilcox liked Carrick. There were certain people that liked an Ollie, and it was all about, the optics of it, and that could have pivoted and switched. Now, on Saturday, it was Ollie, right? Exactly. And what happened was Wilcox, like I said, like I was told, like I said in here, so that person that comes on here and tries to give me shit, I said this, that someone's ego was going to win, and lo and behold, Scott, Wilcox is the puppet master. And look, this is what it's so important to update the community on all this stuff, is because it's true. Look, people better than me get told different things, right? And I get told stuff. And the stuff that I tell you guys, look, whether it's 100% or 70% true, look, these are the things. And, it is terrifying. Jason Wilcox is the puppet master. Jason Wilcox has the power in this club. And look, I will come on to that. And Scott's right. Wilcox is the manager. Wilcox has got the ultimate power, and you can tell. This team is a reflection on him. It's a reflection on the scattergun approach. It is the reflection on zero ideas, no standards. There's an interview that Rio did with Carrick before he came, and what Carrick is going to do. Carrick is a yes man. Steve Holland. I mean, fucking Steve Holland. I mean, look, this is just absolutely incredible. So look, what I told you everything up until last week. I did say about the power struggle. I did say that whoever wins that, it was Ollie up until the Saturday, and then Jason Wilcox after that game put pressure, and he was the one when it became true. Dino says, just because Carrick was a brilliant player doesn't mean he is a good coach or manager, whatever the title and the board give him. Exactly that. Let's have a little look. I know someone's been cheeky in the chat. The Glazers, Radcliffe have having a big meeting. Let's hope selling our club. Good riddance to the bad rubbish. And I keep saying this. We had a conversation the other week, and I was saying that watch this space. Watch this space, because the money is drawing up. Glazers are not prepared to spend any money, and INEOS are losing like hand over fist. So I would not rule out a sale. I would not rule out things behind the scenes are ramping up. Are INEOS going to leave a sinking ship? Is this a case of now Sir Jim is bitten off more than he can chew? And also as well, one thing that needs to be considered about a big meeting is it could just be the AGM. So it could just be the meeting that a company will have. It could be the regeneration project as well. So I don't know if I learn anything about it, I will also come in and tell you guys as well. But let's hope it's the latter. Wilcox says, yeah, Mike. Wilcox is the new virus in the club. We have gone from Woodward to Wilcox. Just for Life says, one day I'll find a live where you're actually happy with the team, John. Well, one day, mate. One day, pal. One day, mate. One day. Herbie says, hi, Herbie. Hope you're doing well. On my lunch break, Groundhog Day, both at work and at United. Sky's in the house, says hi. JB, would you fight Wilcox if you left the club for good? If you got beat here, I all day long, mate. All day long. Yeah, I guarantee you, I wouldn't lose either. Yeah, yes, Scott, I would. I'd absolutely put everything on the line. It wouldn't be a fight; it'd be a massacre. Sky says, I forgot to lock my car last night when I got home. Woke up this morning and some twats emptied it out. Wow. Wow. What can I say? I'd be coming out swinging, mate. I'd be more than swinging. Let's just say, if any of you have seen, I don't know if any of you have seen 28 Years Later. There's a scene in there where you've got he's an alpha, right? And yeah. Mark Harris, my T says Neto to United in the summer. Mark Harris says drinking vodka with your mug is pretty cool. Talking of mugs, I hope Wilcox is fit for manager's job against City. Mark, I love the fact you set yourself up there, Mark. Mark Harris is a legend of the chat as well. So release the tripod. I bloody will, mate. Ryan Gooden says, looking forward to same Saturday, a baptism of fire for Carrick. That's for sure. Bits of money, kids' tablet. I don't actually know what's in the car. Even a pair of football boots. Honestly, unless the players really turn up and show some real grit, and the quality season will continue in the same form. Where you Amrin out as well? No. Towards the end, I said that Amrin needed to leave for his own sanity. I said this many a times, and people called me stupid was I said I wanted Amorim to walk away. I thought that Amorim should walk away. He did better than that. He did the absolute best thing. The backdrop requires some attention, John. My attention is grabbed by by it all. I do need to do some stuff. I do. I need to change the format as well. I do. I take the critique. I like Ruben, and look, I think Ruben played a blinder. I think Ruben played an absolute blinder. I think Ruben basically walked out of here like a don. It's what more could the guy do? Ruben Amorim knew this was a sinking ship, and what did Ruben do? He basically went, I'm going to publicly force you to sack me. It's either back me, I'm going to make you look stupid. So you either have to back me and you know that I've got power, or you don't. And basically, tough shit. So what Ruben did was masterclass. So I was Amorim in towards the end. I wanted him to go for his sanity, but I was never Ruben out. Managers are leaving the better off while we still continue in the same garbage pattern. Exactly. I mean, one of the things to say, I mean, if it brings you comfort to know this, it doesn't for me, but look, this may bring you some comfort, is that Real Madrid lost 3-2 to a Division 2 team, 14th in Division 2. They lost 3-2 to those. I mean, Real Madrid are they'll be fine, but it can happen. It can happen to the best of teams. Eagle says United is living off his past glory. I think that the brand is, but Eagle, that's what happens when you build out a brand. Now, the only thing I'm going to say for that is Arsenal, right? I look, and this is not a dig at an Arsenal fan, but I'm going to give you a current example of a team living on its past. The Gunners, sorry. Arsenal haven't won a Premier League in 23 years. I know they're top of the table. I know they're up there now. Their fans are saying that they're going to win a league. The fans are saying that they're going to win a Champions League. They've never won a Champions League. Now, Arsenal are the perennial living off of their past. We won a league in 2013. We have won an FA Cup in between, Carabao Cup, which is crap. We have won a Europa League as well. So whilst I will say this, whilst I do say that United's brand is built on the past, but so are most brands. I don't think right now we as a fan base are thinking necessarily about the past. But Eagle, as a comment, I get it, but you've got to think about it. Like every brand in the world, and don't forget we are a brand, they make their money from the past. City, not a dig at them, but they've made their money from the present. Liverpool have made their money from the past. You can name any brand, pretty much any historical brand, and they've made their money from the past. So yes, Eagle, you do live off your past in some respects, because that's how you become the club that you are. So look, I respect the comment. I read the comments out, but it's not as straightforward as that. Justin says, "Hey, hello, Justin. Derby games are different, but if we turn up, we've got a choice." Forza Milan. Liao says, "Mitch, legend, United, we stand." Exactly, Justin. Exactly, mate. People can say that we're not a big club anymore. No one's going to come to us. We're this club that we know our problems, right? It's a bit like you've got a family member that's a total and utter waste of space, total and utter idiot. But guess what? They're your idiot. And just because we are not where we're supposed to be, we've got issues, we've got Pratt's in charge of the club, doesn't mean that we're not going to back this club. So, I think those people who want to come on here and banter, that's no issue at all. But guess what? We're suddenly not going to back down, and we're suddenly not going to back this club just because we're going through a tough time. Just for laughs says, 13 to 14 years since United have won the league. If I'm honest, I can't see it changing anytime soon. David the Rest says, Ruben had the balls to call Wilcox, even though football was shite, but a lot of things needed to change. I would love to wake up one day and things are different at United. Justin says that Liverpool won 2 leagues in the space of 30 years. Justin, I didn't want to say it. I didn't, mate. Look, I would say the only 2 clubs that have been really consistent winning leagues are in the last couple of years are City. Probably, really. And this is not going to turn into a Liverpool debate, but look, Justin, people forget that Liverpool have won 2 leagues in 36 years. It's not even 30 years. Liverpool have won 2 leagues in 36 years. Just for laughs says, that makes me laugh. People put a time frame of 30 years, go back another 10, and how many was it? Go back to the start, and that's exactly it. Look, you can go back to 1807, 1902. It's like for like, right? He said Amrin was so happy on the pictures when he left. I'm not surprised. Which team is the most successful in England? You would automatically go for United or Liverpool, right? Liverpool, you can argue, more European Cups. I would say for me, and this is just for me, I think that it's United for me, and the reason I think that is because we've won a treble. If Liverpool did that, then they would, again, if Liverpool win another league, it's very close. It's very close. Eagle says, brands who only live off the past eventually lose their relevance in present. No kid dreams of playing for United. Disagree, Eagle. Disagree completely. Disagree completely. That's your view, Eagle. Brands who live off the past eventually lose their relevance. I mean, Coca-Cola, Pepsi. I mean, certain banks, certain insurance people. You can start looking at people like Apple. I disagree. Eventually, United's brand will get lesser and lesser, but I disagree, Eagle. We're going to have to respectfully disagree. Which is, can you name another club where they spent so much on sacking managers? Chelsea. Chelsea have probably spent quite a bit on sacking managers. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head in the Premier League. I bet Nottingham Forest have spent this season. Spurs. Chelsea, Spurs, United, across the world. I don't know, but yeah. I'm not debating or anything, guys, says Justin. Man U has some serious issues when it comes to leadership. I do agree with you, and we will come on to that as well. Just stop making everything about how bad United is. It just shows they will always be the best. They are always talked about. Have a look. This is what you get after sacking Erik ten Hag, a coach that won trophies, and with him you 100% reach the European football. Erik ten Hag is one of those coaches where, you know, I don't know. I don't know with him. The jury's out on him. You know, look, he win. Look, what cannot be disputed with him is that Ten Hag won a trophy, but with Ten Hag, was it a case of, look, you know, he did have, you can call them better players, whether these players were crap or not. Look, Mitch, I think people get too caught up in the percentages stats, right? I think they get too caught up in the percentage stats. My thing here will be with this, right? You can look at those percentages stats, and you can say, you know, Mourinho is up there, Erik ten Hag was up there. I get that, right? But did any of them win a league? No. Did any of them win Champions League? No. You can argue Ollie got to second in a COVID season. That wasn't the best. We've not been close to a league. We've not been close to the Champions League. So you can tell me, you can say, you know, this manager is 50%, this manager is, you know, but what does it matter? What does it matter? What does it matter? You know, Ten Hag did win us a trophy, but these players threw him under the bus. You know, it's we all have this conversation on here, and I've seen it lots and lots and lots of times, right? We blame the manager. They win a trophy, they get sacked. Then it's the manager's fault. Then it's the player's fault. Then it's the board's fault, and then it's who assigns this blame, right? This is what the Glazers want. These are the conversations that the Glazers want us to have. You know, you look at an Ollie. Ollie got second. The football was really good at start. Signed some players. You know, the players, in my humble opinion, threw him under the bus. Or was it the fact that Ollie wasn't the best coach and he got found out? He goes, Ranić comes in, you know, he argues with the board, calls at the club. The players don't want to play for him. He gets sacked. Ten Hag comes in, wins a trophy, wins two. You know, seemingly improving. The players sack him. He goes. Amorim, you know, look, Amorim, it was a disaster. I'm not necessarily blaming him, but again, you know, this is you know, I don't know. Asco says, why that moderator keeps banning me for no reason is very sensitive. Look, I don't know. I leave it up to the moderators to do their job. All these companies you named have rebranded themselves and kept innovating. Look at Nokia, Kodak, Yahoo. Man U is stuck in the past. They need a massive restructure. Look, I don't disagree with you. Look, Eagle, I don't disagree with you. You know, I do not disagree. And where this is where I would agree with you on it, right? Is this like United? United are stuck in the past. At the moment, we are a victim of, we have never moved away from the Fergie days, right? Our ground is not fit for purpose anymore. Doesn't mean that we need to knock it down. I'll tell you this thing, right? So basically, somebody that I know, they don't work there now. They used to work in the finance department, right? And imagine you've got this Premier League club who is, got the best in class, and this was the time in and around Ollie's era, and they're signing Sancho's, they're signing all these big players, right? Their finance team was basically using like Excel to basically do like the finance stuff, right? Now, most big organizations, United are a massive, worth billions and billions of pounds, and they couldn't be bothered to upgrade their IT systems. Couldn't be bothered to give their staff up-to-date financial tools to be able to do their job effectively. Behind the scenes, Woodward and Co wouldn't sign off new computer screens, wouldn't sign off every single thing, and I'm this is fact. Every single thing, from a box of pencils to staplers to stamps, literally had to be signed off. And you're talking about an organization here that is supposed to be the best in class, right? Worth billions and billions of pounds, spending hundreds of £1,000,000, and their internal structure, because look, this is what makes a club good, right? Their backroom staff, they were basically using antiquated systems that were years and years old, and this gives you an insight into what it's like behind the scenes. And you're right, Eagle. This club needs to evolve. We need to learn the lessons of the past and look to the past, right? And the reason why you look to the past is because you can learn the lessons from the past. We need to leave the Fergie days gone. And what I mean is, look, Fergie is Fergie, but we need to move on to a new era. But the Glazers have. The thing is, what I think people miss is that the Glazers want us to live off of the Fergie days, because the reason is because they can hark back to the past. They then don't have to look at the present. They don't have to look at the future. They want you to look backwards, because then it means that the moment, if we stop and stand still and we look at the club, right, and you look at the actual ground, you go into it, you look at the facilities. Ronaldo said the same. It's exactly the same. And yes, Carrington was improved. They spent 50 million on it. Newcastle are going to spend 200 million. This club needs a shot in the arm. This club needs to move forward. This club needs to evolve. You don't need to knock down a stadium to evolve. We need to do it now. But as I've said before, what the Glazers should have done is they should have paid off the club. They should have paid off the stadium, looked after the stadium, and then as a thank you to fans, now they should have said, look, Old Trafford is fantastic. We love the ground. We're going to keep it. You could play the women's team there. You could do something with it, right? Turn it into a museum, but just keep it there. And then as a thank you to the fans, and as a way to evolve as a club in a very traditional, in a very respectful way, you say, look, we're going to keep the ground, but look, we want to be the best in class. We want to be the best in the world. And working with the fan groups, working with the fans, you then build a stadium, but you get everybody's acceptance. Not everybody is going to accept it, but that's what a well-run club would do. They would be like, look, guys, we need to move away, because if you want best in class and you want to keep up with the Chelsea, well, the Arsenals, the cities of this world, we need to upgrade the facilities. No problem with that at all. That is not squad. So Eagle, look, I think you make a good point, mate. Tam says, sorry, you did not get the job, mate. Anyway, we need to rebuild to get rid of the old, including Bruno. Continuity is key. It's not a coincidence that during both Liverpool's and United's most successful eras, they had long-standing managements. Liverpool replaced within, so kept things very, very similar. Yeah, look, I would agree with you. Agree with you. If you look at, I'd say if you want to know what those eras are about, you go and watch Liverpool, the King Kenny thing. Go and watch that, and then go and watch the Class of '92. Go and watch the Fergie days. It shows you everything that you need to know. I can't remember the Liverpool manager's name. It was Joe something, wasn't it? And basically, Shankly left, or was it Paisley? I think Shankly left. Paisley come in, won a European Cup, and then or two, and then left. And then Joe, can't remember his name. He come in, he won Champions League. Dalglish become player coach, and I think they won the UEFA, the European Cup as well. And then if you look at the Fergie days, just unreal, unreal. God says, why don't? Yeah, done that one. Justin says, how can you want to get rid of Bruno if he's playing his heart out every game? Yes, there are times he frustrates you, but you have to put some respect in his name. Look, Justin, I respect the opinion. I do. Not everybody feels that way. I don't, mate. I absolutely do not feel that way about Fernandes. I respect the player that he was. There's a difference between running around like a chicken who's headless, right? Bruno Fernandes is not a captain, mate. Look, Justin, I'm not calling your opinion out. I respect your opinion. I'm not saying you're wrong. My view is this. Bruno Fernandes has been shocking all season. And look, I know, absolutely respect him for the fact that the things that he's done. All I'm going to say is, what's Bruno really done? People keep saying that Bruno Fernandes, great. He's got these personal accolades, right? Top scorer, player of the season, assists, goals, star man. What has Bruno done other than winning a Carabao Cup and an FA Cup? Has Bruno Fernandes instilled a winning mentality into this team? No, he can't do it on his own, but no, he hasn't. Is he a captain on the pitch? Not really. Bruno Fernandes disappears, Liverpool 7-0. Grimsby this season. The Europa League final, Bruno Fernandes goes missing. The Brighton game, people will say that he was injured, right? We've had players in this team who have been injured and they'll still give it all. Terry, for example, at a Chelsea, played with broken toes. I'm not saying that is what should happen, but I respect the Bruno thing. But mate, he doesn't play his heart out every game. Justin, I disagree with you, mate. I've watched every single game this season. Bruno Fernandes does not play his heart out, mate. He basically runs around the pitch and he gets in people's way. Look, Bruno Fernandes is going to be a divisive topic, right? But I respect both sides of the argument. For me, if Bruno Fernandes was going to stay and not be the captain, fine. Because I think if you were trying to get a player of the attributes that he has, it will be phenomenally expensive. So I think he would be better here as another player, as another squad player, but as a captain, no. So for that reason, and for me, he's not going to stay if he's not the captain. He's got to go. But if he wasn't the captain and he was just another player, then of course, yeah, fine. But it's just, for me, it's that captaincy bit. What's up, JB? Hello, QWERTY. Mark Harris says maybe Fergie has more power behind the scenes. He should be removed. Roy Keane in the Carrick staff. Fergie, yeah, I agree. I do think he does. He is a coach with the third best point rate after Sir Alex Ferguson. At Mourinho, the point gap is close, but then if somebody does not agree, that they are very stupid. I disagree with you. Just because, look, you can win. Look, this is my point in this, right? Is I liked Ten Hag. I didn't blame him. I didn't necessarily want him to go. I don't blame Ten Hag, right? But the problem is, for me, is like we get quoted these XG stats. You get quoted the manager's ratio of wins is this, the players' goals are this, his XG is that, our team is XG. Like, unless you win something, who gives a shit? Like, whether Ten Hag's win percentage is the 5th greatest in the Premier League ever, I don't care. Like, I'm not focusing on these personal accolades. I'm not focusing on the, his win percentage. You look at the amount of games that Fergie actually played, or Fergie actually was the manager of, compared to these guys. It is night and day. And you can't. I think it is. I'm gonna to quote you. I think it's stupid that people want to put Fergie and then put who was 2 and 3 and 4. Not one of them are on his level. So the fact that people bring in our managers on the same list as a Ferguson with their career at this club is ludicrous to me, because it doesn't mean anything. We've not won a league, so I don't care if Carrick's win ratio is 99.9%. He wins every game. He goes and wins every game 13-0. If we don't win anything or nothing comes out of it, it doesn't matter. The best example, Liverpool beat us 7-0. Other than 3 points and being able to brag about it, what does it matter? Like, we get too caught up in XG stats, because guess what? That is what the media want to portray to you. United need to rebuild. Not about the manager. It's about getting a reasonable 11 players week in, week out. Get rid of the old players, and we should stop paying over the hill people. You was happy with Erik ten Hag? No, 100% not. But I didn't mind Erik ten Hag. You could see what he was trying to do. Like people say, Ollie, right at the very start of Ollie, he was bright, he was good, but the back end of that football was crap. Ranić, his reign was crap. Amorim's reign has been crap. I've not enjoyed a brand of football at this club since Ollie's first stint. I didn't like Van Gaal. Jose wasn't great. I haven't liked the brand of football since Ollie's first half a season. No. Justin says, Connor, when is it? United still playing Luke Shaw and Dalot. We have owners who would never cry for the club. JB makes Sky a mod. Yeah, did we expect any midfield signings? Praveen, no. This channel has been saying it for months that we're not going to sign a midfield player, and I will get onto it because there is an update on that as well. What would make Jim and the Glazers sell, JB? Money, mate. I will give you a glimmer of hope. I'll give you a glimmer of hope here, is that Sir Jim Ratcliffe is running out of money. Personally, he's a billionaire. But why that's important is because he's not going to spend his own money on this club. He's not got INEOS to back him up because they're in the shit as well. The Glazers are not going to put money into their own pockets. This situation for Sir Jim is getting worse and worse and worse. And how do I know this? Is it because somebody has texted me, no. Have I put it into chat GBT? No. Has somebody come to me in the night and told me in a dream? No. The reason why I know that this shit show could potentially make him sell is because he said it himself. Radcliffe said it himself. It is out there in an interview. If Sir Jim Ratcliffe feels that this club is not a viable commodity, in terms of if Sir Jim gets a load of abuse, and I don't mean, and I don't agree with abuse, but if Sir Jim gets some backlash over this, he will leave. Let's give him backlash. Look, these are his words. These are not my words. This is not from a source. This is not from an AI engine. This is from the words of Sir Jim. If he gets too much of a backlash, he will go. Wilcox got no intention of signing players. He's had so much backlash on this that his hand has been forced, and he is the puppet master. And I'll get on to some more bits and pieces as well. Seems the club are heavily reliant on using and living off the club's history and not making any new history. We've fallen so far behind the likes of Newcastle, City and Arsenal. Anthony says, did I not try and throw you off Trent Bridge when you beat us 8-1 in 99? I was not a happy chappy that day, and you were taking the piss, lad, anyway. No. Did I not try through? No. Then you were taking the piss, lad. No, because I guarantee, my friend, if you tried to chuck me off a bridge, you'd be the one taking a dump in the water, mate, not me. We need to move on from the past. That our history, exactly. I don't know what's going on. I want Cole Palmer in the summer. It's not going to happen. Bruno is not a captain. So who is? Nobody. I would go De Ligt. I don't know how old you people are in here, and again, this is not an ageist thing, right? If you think Bruno Fernandes is a captain, I feel sorry, because just because somebody runs around the pitch, throws his arms up in the air, chucks his arms up when a referee steps on his boot, because we were told by Amorim that he walks around the place, he gives people high fives, he smiles, that is not a captain. Look, a captain in this club. There are two clubs. I keep saying this, where a captain has to transcend the club. Liverpool, United, right? Just because somebody prances around, chucking their arms in the air, pointing people to go here, pointing people to go there, that is not a captain. I promise you, if you think that Bruno Fernandes, and that's your view, I'm not calling that out. That is not a captain. That is not a captain. Bruno Fernandes is not a captain. I don't think we've got any real captains here. The only two captains that I would say is the Butcher and De Ligt. The butcher for me would be my captain. But Quirty, you're right. None of these players are. I don't know what's going on there. Like Horse says, Bruno is a great player to have, but a terrible player to be your best. Agreed. I like Horses. I actually think that's the best way to sum him up. I think that's a very, very, very good way to sign him up. I like Horses, mate. I actually couldn't have summed that up better myself. He is a great player, but a terrible player to be. Mate, I'm going to steal that. I like that a lot. It's true. Bruno Fernandes is a great player to have, but a terrible player to be your best. Yep, I couldn't agree more with that. Star Strange DT, your bro. You've got a whole bedroom that is United themed. No, it's not actually, mate. This is not a bedroom. This is a separate office, mate. I've got my house through there. I've got my main house in there, and this is my office. So, you know, I'm just saying, there's not a bedroom. This is an office that goes round. You know, that's just a tiny section of the office, mate. You know, it's just an office. You know, just an office. I've got my actual house in there. I've got to leave this door and go to another door. You know. John says, see Sir Jimmy's meeting the Glazers out at the training ground. I hope there are discussions about selling that. No, I keep saying this. Do not forget there is a consortium here. Do not forget that. I said this a couple of weeks ago, months ago. There is light. There is some light here. There is some light here. You know, there is a real possibility that a sale could happen. That is just my humble view. The caveat to that is this: look, if they break ground on the regeneration, forget about it, right? But I've always said this to myself, even before I've started the channel, is this. When the club is built and they build the ground it won't be built for, say, 5 or 6 years' time, right? It's going to take a little while because don't forget now, the Glazers don't own everything, right? They're going to have to bring in partners. They're going to have to bring in infrastructure partners. They're going to have to bring in people to build this stuff, right? It's going to be complex, right? It's not going to be they build it, it's done. They've got to bring in. They're going to have to go through government contracts. They're going to have to go through the government. They're going to have to go through contracts. They're going to have to get. Infrastructure in place. They're going to have to do all sorts of stuff, right? It's going to be time, money, lawyers' fees. It's going to cost hundreds of millions of pounds, and we're talking lawyers' fees. We're talking building fees, architectural fees. Who's going to pay for that, right? And then they'll pay all this money, and then they're going to have to, let's just say it costs to build it all is going to cost you 1.5 for the stadium. The infrastructure around it's going to cost another 2 or 3. They can only leverage the debt. Someone's going to have to pay that back, right? Are they really going to go through all that 5 or 6 years of being hated because there's going to be no cash for the team? They're then going to have to pay a big chunk of it back. Let's just say if it makes in a year, you know, with all the housing, the shopping, the stadium, let's just say it makes £1 billion a year, right? Of that money, a massive chunk of that is going to have to go out the door, at least for the first 5 years. It's easy. It will be easier for them. It will be easier for them to go, we have got the stadium plans. We've got the infrastructure plans in place now. We've got the land. We've acquired the land. You've got the stadium. You can have the brand. We will sell it now for £6 billion, right? They would make £4 billion, right? If they waited to try to make the same money back, it may take them 10 years' time. So the light here is, do INEOS and the Glazers have an appetite for this long term? I question it. I question, are they creating the infrastructure first? They've upgraded Carrington. They're getting the plans in place. They're getting the stadium plan in place. They're getting the infrastructure in place. Sir Jim is what, 75? The Glazers are pushing 60. I know they've got children. But are they willing? Because they're going to have to suck up costs. Are they willing? Because people just think it's just the cost of building the stadium, right? It's not. So are the Glazers, and they'll have to stump up cash, by the way. Are the Glazers ready for a long-term commitment? That means money, financials. They're going to have to find lawyers' fees, conveyancing fees. They're going to have to find all sorts of fees. It's going to be hundreds, right? Do the Glazers have the appetite, and INEOS, do they have the Sir Jim? Do they have the appetite and the time to do something that's going to take 5 to 6 years to build, and then another 5 to pay back? That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. So look, that's my view. I think at some point we are going to hear the rumblings again of a potential sale. That's my view. Jim of the Blend says 5th greatest in the Prem era, as it's that kind of achievement when we've had roughly that many full-time managers in an era. So impressive. Of course, it says, I reckon you probably win the league with 99% win ratio. So Alex Ferguson is the greatest ever. Yes. Would you have Rashford back? Harif, I can answer this question quite easily, right? Would I have him back? I would have Rashford back under these circumstances, right? If I knew Rashford was going to come back, get his head down, leave his ego at the door, come into this team as a squad player, give everything for this club, contribute, yes, I would, because he's a homegrown lad. But the current Marcus Rashford, would I want him back? No, 100%. Can you imagine Rashford coming back and he's played for a Barcelona, he's played for that dream club, he's won a cup? Imagine his ego. But also as well, by the way, a little update on that as well is that Barcelona want Rashford. They don't want to pay the money though. So watch this space, because Barcelona their proposal could be they take Rashford on loan again for next season. But they want him, but they don't want to pay the money for him. So it could be they offer a loan again to pay all of his wages. So Rashford, contrary to what I've said, contrary to what other people have said, Barcelona are trying to work something out, but not at the price that we've asked them. Van Gaal's footy was so tedious. Jose was timid. I agree with you. Ollie's initial stint was the only time I've enjoyed it. It was. Jimmy's running out of time. I do agree. Letting Rashford go was a big issue. Samuel, I disagree. I disagree completely. I think letting go of Rashford was one of the best things that we did. Dave says Radcliffe needs to go now. Let's all give him shit. And yes. We can look. People think that when you want somebody to go, that you've got to be like, oh, you can back off, mate. You just need to just send emails to the club. Send emails to the club. Send emails to Sir Jim. Be very, very, very polite. Mr. Jim, you are killing this club. We do not want you here. Can you kindly leave? Simple as that. Wilcox is the captain manager. Jason Wilcox is the multi-millionaire space cowboy manager, star player. Get for these chats. Wilcox is, look at me, I'm the captain now. How did you get rid of Ghana and get Ugarte? That's not raising funds. It's lost us money, made the Ghana so pointless. No, it is. Look, it is. Again, you've got to look at the people in charge of this club. Absolute ridiculous. Star was saying about his own bedroom is United themed. Don't know. Funny because what has recently happened has done something that Wilcox didn't put him in the limelight. He's a snake in the background, swinging power and letting the coach take the heat. The captain of a club doesn't have to be the best player. Having a leader mentality is a different skill set. Bruno isn't a captain. He's a selfish player who only plays for himself or things. Agreed with that. Agreed with that. You don't have to be the best player to be a captain. You have, as you said there, you have to have the best mentality. JB, they might not even get the land to build the new ground if the Freightliner don't sell, which would be beneficial for us. So as we spoke about this before, Scott, they're trying to issue Freightliner with a compulsory sell order. Now, funnily enough, I've launched a petition and I'm using the exact same thing. I want this government to issue a compulsory sell order to the Glazers. Now, the compulsory sell order basically means that if the sale of something means protection of something is a historical value, if it's to do with the interest of the government, of the infrastructure around you, you can force to sell. It means that you get the asset, the land, the thing at the market fair price. So Freightliner are trying to say to INEOS, look, we know our land at the moment is worth 60 million. However, we know once you've got that, it literally is going to be worth 500 million. We want you to pay that now. And the Snakes and Sir Jim are going, no, we don't want to pay that now. We're going to use my connection and we're going to try to force you out. So I don't know how long Freightliner can stand their ground. And Scott, I hope the Freightliner lawyers are very, very good, because if Freightliner are not forced to sell, screws them over. As a Bristol Rovers fan, I can tell you these kind of redevelopments do indeed cost a bomb. We spent $500,000 on consultancy just to find that it's not a viable option. A lot of money for a club of our size. Exactly. It is not just the stadium cost. It's the infrastructure cost. It's the surveyor's cost. It's the legal cost. It's the government project cost. You need all sorts of people involved. JB, there is nothing we can do so the Freightliner don't sell to Glazers or Jim to build the new stadium. I really, really hope that is the case. Dave the Red says Glazers holding on as a good price for the club. Radcliffe is running out of money. They are clueless. Go now. Exactly. Bobby says hello. Hello, my friend. Glory Hunter terribly. United are bad. Thanks. Can we don't mind banter. Can we have a little bit more banter? Can we have on this channel a little bit more highbrow banter. I don't mind the banter. Just come on, can we have more? Right? Can the two things I really ask for? Can we have more than, oh, that's an interesting Manc accent that you've got there? That's number one. That is we get that every stream. Or the next one is United are crap. You're not finishing in the top 5. Tell us something that we don't know. United, for me, bad club in the Premier League right now. That's better. That's better, Zala. That is much, much better. Much, much better. New manager, United 2029. Predict England news. Amorim last contract for this club. You're getting better. The banter's getting better. When do you believe your club will get back? Look, G-Mark, it's when we say get back, it's never going to get back to the old days. It's never getting back there. It's never going to. For me, getting back is not winning Premier League after Premier League. It is being competitive every season. It is winning. It is challenging for the Premier League every season. It's the expectation of winning the Premier League every season. It's being disappointed that you don't win the Premier League each season. It's the disappointment of not being consistent in the Champions League. It is consistently getting through to semi-finals, to finals. It's consistently getting through to finals of the FA Cup, to the Carabao Cup. It's consistency of signing the best players. It's the having the elite coaches. It's the having the elite football as well. That for me is being back. Callum says, boo. Says, hi, well, I'm flying to Manchester for the Fulham game from Southeast Asia. I hate myself for doing this, as that means I'm contributing to our pathetic owners. Look, Mister, no. Look. Don't ever feel bad. Look, don't ever feel bad for loving your club. Look, I am in favour of a protest. I'm in favour of doing what needs to be done to get these people out. But I absolutely 100%. Fans should not apologise. Look. It's such a hypocritical thing of me to say sometimes, but look, yes, if nobody goes to games, that it hits them in the pocket, but it's not going to games that hits them. Where you hit them hard is you protest in numbers. You go on their social media, you go on their channels, and you say the Glazers out. The more vocal. It's basically a numbers game. And they absolutely understand this. It's basically like this, right? If everybody in this country decided, I don't want to pay my gas bill, right? And then we said, we're all going to march, and the police said, no, you're not. And everybody in this country decided to march on the PM. 70 million people said, we're not paying our gas bills anymore, and we're going to push you out. Right? The police can't do anything. Well, the police the police would have no power, right, against 70 million people in force saying we're not paying the bills anymore. Guess what? What would happen? You won't be paying your bills anymore, right? If 100,000 people marched and stood outside of the ground, imagine this, right? This is probably an extreme thing. If 1 million people went into the protests, right, it would stop before it even started because the police would close it down. If you want to get games cancelled, you don't riot, you don't fight. Numbers. A numbers game. You be respectful, you be polite. Imagine if United received emails, 1 million emails all saying Wilcox out. What would happen? He'd get sacked. All right? It is a numbers game, and this is what people don't seem to get, is People think you need to fight, you need to scream. You can do everything from a peaceful perspective, which is what I promote. But it's a numbers game, and until we get the numbers, there is no point in stopping a mister from flying from to the Fulham game because it takes more than one person, right? Callum says you lost to Brighton. Not everyone can beat Brighton. Yep. Sully says rival fans think we are deluded. We know. Anthony says Amorim's lowest win rate ever. In it doesn't matter. You know, I mean, it is. You know, stats are there for a reason. The data is there. The data will only tell you so much. You know, it's David Red says, who cares what other clubs think? They are jealous of a great club. Good or bad, United is forever. Amorim's worst win rate in history. You're just not good at math. Who's not good at math? I am. I'm extremely good at math, actually. And just to put this point out, stats are not math. They're not the same thing. Maths and stats are not the same thing. It is the data, right? If you get the data, right, it doesn't tell you everything that you need to know. Does your data, right? If you take a win percentage of him, does that data tell you about how crap the players were? Does your data tell you, the signings that weren't made? Does your data tell you that we signed Amorim, a coach who plays a back three, and we never play that system, and we don't have those players? Does your data tell you that we don't have the players to play that system? Does the data tell you about every other coach that Luke Shaw has sacked? Your data is very, very limited until you get all of the variables and a complete set of the data. It doesn't mean anything. I can manipulate the stats. I could manipulate the data. Data is only as good as what it is you're trying to do with the data. Data doesn't lie. Math doesn't lie. It's people that do. So people will take the data. People will take the math and use it for their ends, right? But you've got to have the data. You've got to have the full picture, which I guarantee we don't. Puncher Bunny says, "Stop crying." Yep. Yep. Punch Bunny, good lad. He's a hysterical girl and embarrassed to this club. Interesting. More people support clubs that don't win the league. Anthony Mitchell says, I'm Forest. The original Redstone famous Garibaldi. Interesting. No way. Lucky got booted. Lucky got the hammer. It was doing my night and says, Scott, do you think if we don't start playing well, let alone winning trophies soon, the club will skip a generation of fans, and that means the club will lose its influence? Yes. I think Eagle made a good point before is on brands, right? If you don't keep up and you don't evolve as a brand, yes, because United rely on income from the fans across the world, from sales. Yes, agreed. My first United game was Old Trafford in 1975, a 0-0 draw, 60,000 there. I went up every Christmas from Nottingham to visit Irish relatives in Salford. Then it says the owners need to leave. They're all incompetent. We are too big a club for these guys. Their choices are suspect. Check stats. It's difficult being a United supporter at the moment, but my loyalty and support and traveling to every match. As I said, every time the Glazers leave, let us be great again. You can go far the other way and end up like Chelsea, where the results on the pitch aren't the priority. Flats were Eddie Coleman, back of the Flats, named 1958 heirs who perished. Rest in peace, the Busby Babes. Agreed. So look, I wanted to quickly, briefly get into the Wilcox stuff as well. So basically, what is coming out now is that apparently Wilcox, the manager, the man behind the scenes, were prepared. Anthony says, "I'm off. All the best. Of wishes for Saturday." Thank you, my friend. I hope and back at you, my friend. JB, if Old Trafford gets ripped down, you want the clock, mate? Yes. So apparently, and again, this will be doing the rounds. Jason Wilcox, the man, the myth, the legend, is basically prepared to open up the checkbook for Carrick, not to get a midfielder, not to get a wing back, but to get a winger. His grand plan is to get a winger. Justin says, so what's the prediction for Saturday's derby? Oh, mate, I don't even know, mate. I don't even know, Justin. If this wasn't a derby, right? If this was the Arsenal game, I would be predicting a loss. Okay, it is a derby, right? I'm gonna go with Bobby. I'm gonna say 2-1 to United, not for any rhyme or reason, just because it's a derby, and I will not accept the excuse that we're playing badly. I'm not going to accept the excuse that we've got to win it. We've got to win it. We've got to win it. I'm going to go for a 2-1, but don't be surprised if this is an absolute spanking. So look, let's see. So Wilcox, and there is no context for this. This has been reported that Jason Wilcox, the manager, the guy behind the scenes who's too scared to come out and talk, he basically wants to get a winger. Wants to get a wider play. No, he doesn't mind the gaping hole in that midfield that's been there for 15 years. He doesn't mind the fact that we get overran in that pivot. He doesn't mind that, the midfield is shit. We all know there's an interview out there that Carrick wants to build the team around a Mainu. That is out there. We know that Carrick's plan is to build this team around an inconsistent 19, 20-year-old player who's been up and down. That's his grand plan. And that, again, is out there. The funny thing about all of this is that everything is out there. It's all out there. So we're going to see Mainu feature. Mainu has played well against City in the past. Can Carrick leverage anything? Can he leverage that game? Can Carrick get into these players' heads? This is a derby. It's unlike any other game. If this was just a normal game, I would say that we'd probably lose. But this can't be a normal game. But Wilcox, the manager behind the scenes, as he said, he is the frustrated man. Look, Wilcox is the puppet master. Wilcox has so much power. Until the end of last week, it was Ollie. Ollie was locked in. Ollie was going to come into this club. And Wilcox chose Carrick. Wilcox was the one that had the final decision on it and was given the final decisions by Sir Jim Ratcliffe. And he picked Carrick. And it was Ollie's job. And he decided that he wanted Carrick because at the end of the day, Carrick is a yes man to him. And I'm not saying that is Carrick as a person. That is why he was brought in. He brought in Steve Holland, I mean, it is. If you guys like me was absolutely terrified that Southgate was going to come in, this is being lined up for Southgate. But look, there's talk that Wilcox is going to decide. Wilcox the man, the puppet master, is driving everything, and he's prepared to sanction a left winger. Now, never mind a midfielder, never mind we've got a gaping hole there. In his wisdom, the guy that basically took Southampton down was there for 9 months, was a youth team manager, trainer at City under 18s. This is the guy that we have got to lead this club. It is unbelievable. Now, he wasn't going to sign a coach, so he wasn't going to sign a player for an Amorim. Amorim wanted Quenda. Amorim wanted these different players. As Susanata says, hello. It is absolutely incredulous that he wasn't going to sign Ruben. Ruben wanted a midfield player. Go and get Neves. Go. I can't express this enough to the football inside. Go and get a midfielder. Go and get a Neves. A left winger, a winger. What are they going to do? What are they going to do? They've got Mbumo. They've got Ahmad. They've got Cunha that can split. Okay, he's not a winger. And just to go back as well, and this will tell you how stupid and how incompetent they are, right? So not only did Wilcox sanction and was part of the decision making that got Amorim in, who plays a back three, right? They let him get rid of the wide players. Okay, Anthony, whatever we think about these players, they decided they would let him get rid of those wide players. Okay, and now he's decided that no, we're going to go to a back four. He wants to play with width. And we don't have any fucking wingers. It's just. Why is Wilcox still here? I don't mind. So now he's sanctioned. Wilcox is now sanctioned a left winger. It is just a scattergun, ludicrous approach. They don't know what they're doing with this team. They don't know what they're doing. They've drilled these guys all season since November last year to be a back three team. That's been drilled into these players. They want them now to revert back to a back four, can play a completely different way, and they don't have the players to do it. It is Wilcox is basically providing an absolute. It's just a mess. So look, Wilcox, he's basically picked Carrick. Wilcox has picked the manager. He's picked the interim manager. He picks the formation. He's picked the team. He's picked the coaches. This now is his mess. If Wilcox gets to the end of the season, and look, I don't want to keep on speaking about him, but every single day something new keeps coming out about this absolute fucking melt, right? It is embarrassing to this club that they've let somebody of that incompetence, no experience, let Willie Wilcox. It's just I've literally got zero words for it. I've got zero words how you've let his ego run wild. Ollie was the guy, and then at the last second you change it. Ollie was the guy, and then he changes it. This is an absolute shambles mess. Now, I know people are talking about changing the manager that's going to set us back, right? It will, but it is these decisions now. You've gone from hiring a coach who plays a back three to it doesn't work. You give them those players, and then you want them to revert back to a back four. You've had a team full of players who couldn't play the back three in the first place, who've now got no confidence. They don't know what they're doing. You've got a threadbare squad. Even when Cunha, even when Mazraoui, Ahmad, and Bruno comes back, Dilik comes back. What is going to change? These players played all season. It's just absolutely a steaming, festering pile of shit. And if Wilcox doesn't go, if he doesn't get sacked, then you just, we talk about managers, we talk about Southgate. Imagine a dream team of Southgate, Wilcox, Holland. It will be how. The worst part about it for me is the Glazers are absolute cretins and are the devils, right? But what's made this even worse, and I think right now from the football perspective that makes this worse, they have let amateurs run this club. They're letting amateurs run this club. You've got Sir Jim who's come in and thinks this team is a top four team, a local lad that has a season ticket to Chelsea. He's gone and hired a COO from City who wasn't even the guy there. You've gone and hired a director of football from Southampton who went down. He did a shit job there. And Manchester City youth team coach. He's come into this side and they have set this club back. Whether or not you think Amorim was the guy or not, that decision alone has set the club back in terms of you either sack him or you back him. They sacked him not because they weren't going to back him. They sacked him because he opened his mouth. They sacked him because he went against the club. This club under a Wilcox regime have no. Do not be deceived. Jason Wilcox runs the football inside. Jason Wilcox runs the football inside. If you look at it all and put the pieces together, Wilcox is the puppet master. He is the guy that is in control of the important stuff. So look again. I find it today that I've got to come on here again, and we've got to talk about this again because he's sanctioning the signings. He's the one opening up the checkbook. It keeps coming out today that he is the one that hired a Carrick. And it's I took stick beginning of the week because I said that Ollie was the guy. And I get messages and texts, and I kept an update saying, he's the guy. Carrick has come in, he's interviewed, he's done well. The gap is getting shorter and shorter and shorter. And then towards the back end of the week, it was, look, Carrick is catching up, but at the moment, Ollie is that guy. And then after the Brighton game, I did say this was an ego trip, and whoever the biggest ego was would be the one to win out and pick up their guy. And guess what? It's come out today that Wilcox got his man. Wilcox was the one. And please, and that is for the person who his name's user something who basically hides behind an account. That is for fucking you, because we were right. My source was 100% right. The ego won, and Wilcox is the ego. We were not in any control of this, and also you know the info was correct, because there is never going to be one person. This was going to go to a committee of people, and somebody was going to have the final say, and this went to a Favel. This went to an Omar Barada. This went to some people. Jason Wilcox's ego, he was the one that was pushing it. He is the one that's on the football inside, and he was the one that picked it. And that's what we said all along in here. Eventually, it is going to be Ollie, but do not discount Carrick, because Rude was in there as well. It was all about ego, and Jason Wilcox's ego won. And guess what? That's come out today. So, watch out. If the I will warn you as well today that because it has come out that Wilcox is looking to sign players. I guarantee you're going to be spammed today. You'll be absolutely spammed. We're going to sign this winger, that winger, this winger. Don't fall for it today. We've been linked to a winger. Let's see what happens. Before I go, I'll just read some of your chats. Toon fan, no disrespect, but Carrick won't be the golden son in my opinion. Look, wonderful horseshoe. I agree with you. I don't think he will either. Agreed. KG Football says Kai. Susan is called JB. The yellow and green jersey, yeah, it is. It's the best one. Willie Wilcox needs to piss off, doesn't know what he's doing, and go back to Blackburn. I agree with that, my friend. No one on the channel cares about Tottenham. Don't forget it, United Army. So I saw Spurs are going to get Gallagher and Adeyemi. Possibly, mate. John McGree says, until the owners and board are gone, club is dead. It doesn't matter who the manager or coach is. This board won't get anyone in Jan. We're skint. Sandra Quest says, need a structure of play. Yes, please. So look, guys, I'm going to go. Fantastic show, guys. You're absolute legends. I will be back this evening. Obviously, if anything does break, I will come back on. I don't tend to spam you guys too much. I tend to make these shows a little bit longer. I just think that works better. But look, guys, thank you for the support on the channel. As always, you guys are legends. These shows are fantastic. You guys make these shows amazing. Look, you guys bring in your debates. You guys bring in your thoughts, and you make this channel fantastic. Jono says, do you think the Glazers and Sergio meeting could be about selling? I did talk about it briefly. I will talk about it again. There are a couple of things at play here. Number one, it could just be a random meeting. It could be to basically discuss signings. It could be to sell the club. I would say this. Right? Is don't discount the sale. There are many factors out there. There are many factors right now that may force Sir Jim to sell. Then they will force the Glazers to sell. I would say just keep an eye on it. It may not be tomorrow. It may not be this week. But I would say keep an eye on it. Tanya says, thank you and I hope you have a good rest of your day. Thank you, Tanya. Look, we could only hope this gets better. But look, I will be back this evening. Thank you guys for watching. You are legends. I really appreciate it. Have a good rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world. I'm JB. This is the United Devil channel with the best community on this platform. And I will see you very soon. Take care.